Beresford was born on the 26th of June, 1930, in Guyana, South America. He was the youngest of 4 children. His mother was Margaret Hodge, and his father was Nathaniel Edwards. Beresford, as a boy, he grew up in Mackenzie City and went to school there. His mother had a shop, and he used to help her in the shop. His mother was also a Garveyite, and Beresford learned all of his early teachings from his mother because she used to take him to some of the meetings whenever they had them. He was very tall, about 6'4", very handsome man, and he did weightlifting. He also did discus, and I remember the other thing. He was discus anyway, and he represented Guyana several times in different parts of different countries in the Caribbean. His brother-in-law was a tailor, and he taught him tailoring. But Beresford's main love was printing. His boss was so impressed with his work that he advised him to come over to Britain and study lithography, which he did. His boss actually managed to secure a job for him. So he came over here not looking for work, he came over to work. As many of us from the overseas, we always thought that we would be here for 5 years and go back over. But to date, we're here. After 45 years, we're still here. Because of Beresford's experience as a young man with his mother and being a Garveyite, he actually wanted to set up, and did try to set up, a trade union shop in the place where he worked. Now, that was frowned upon. In fact, some of the workers, ostracized Beresford, thinking that he had just come from overseas and he wanted to rock the boat. But he actually did set it up. And that led to his case against the union, the Society of Graphic and Allied Trades, SOGAT for short. The managers didn't realize that Beresford had actually agreed with the management to take out from his salary his union dues. Yeah. So they said that they wanted to get rid of him, yeah, because he was causing trouble. But his union dues was being taken out. I mean, in those days, your union dues was very small, so you wouldn't miss it out of your salary. The case was taken up by Reuters. I don't know if you've heard of Reuters, but Reuters is an international news paper which takes, news from all over the world. So it was relayed all over the world that he had won this case. Yeah, and it's, as I said, it's quoted now in the legal framework, a man's right to work. And some time back, I was watching telly, and they had University Challenge, and it came over who was the man who had actually won this case against the union. And there's me saying, it's Beresford, it's Beresford. But they didn't know. They didn't know until when the interviewer said Beresford Edwards. So that was, and still is, a triumph for anybody who finds themselves in that kind of a situation. See, Beresford was a very strong-minded person. And because of his background, his mother's intervention when he was a young man, he had this thing of what is right and what is wrong. And if it was right, Beresford would be there. You know, he wasn't afraid of anything or anybody. He was very strong-minded. Yeah. And we lived, I came to Britain at the time, you know, Enoch Powell was very rampant. And, you know, people who had houses to let had notices up which said, no niggers. You know, dogs, no niggers. So eventually he had to go and live with a white family. But because he knew I was coming over, he decided to find somewhere else to live. At home, we never lived with anybody else apart from family. And in this place, because the man let rooms out, it was his own place, he let rooms out, so anybody could rent a room. And I was not accustomed to that kind of, I found it very uncomfortable. And we used to throw, I don't know if you've heard of the partner scheme, right? Well, we used to throw a partner, and it was when we got our share of the partner, we decided to put that down on a deposit. And we obtained our first house in 78 Platt Street in Moorside. And I started then to have other children. I've got 4 sons. Beresford Jr., Mark, Ian, and Conrad, 4 of them. And they all went to school across the road in Princess Road School. The City Council then decided that they wanted to evacuate people from Moorside and set up different style housing. We used to live in the back-to-back houses, where you had an alleyway and, you know, and everything was, we loved it there. After a period of time, and Beresford was still carrying on with the union, he was sacked eventually, as I said, you know, he was sacked. And couldn't get a job because the unions, the printing unions, are closed shops. Yeah, if you do not have your union card, you don't get a job. But because of the fact that Lord Dennin had allowed him to get back his card, he was free to get a job in any union place. But the word was out, you know, and he couldn't get a job even though he had his union card. So for a long while he was out of jobs. And I then felt it was my role to find a job. So I contacted various places. But at that time, because of the racism, it was don't call us, we'll call you. And it never happened. Eventually, I managed to get a job in the Hotel Piccadilly as on a plate machine. I worked there for 7 years. And I met up with people from all different parts of the world, from Germany, Spain, Italy, all over. And I found myself in a similar position to Beresford, you know, where a lot of the migrants had various problems. So, of course, you know, they would ask me, would I help, and so on. And I did. Because of all of this thing with Beresford and myself, doing, you know, community work in our homes, our home became the place where people came when they had problems, they came here. And eventually, the WIOCC was set up, the West Indian Organizations Coordinating Committee. Yeah. It housed 6 island groups and was the bedrock for people from the various Caribbean islands and the West Indian Islands as well. Trinidad and Tobago, Grenada, Barbados, Leeward Islands, and Guyana. Although Guyana was not an island group, Guyana was still accepted as a part of the WIOCC. I think mainly because of Beresford's intervention as well. Yeah. The WIOCC was the place where we met, we discussed issues. So there were lots of things, you know, that actually came out of the WIOCC. Saturday schools, summer projects, Easter projects. Beresford, because of what he was involved with at the Carmoor Road, he went to Manchester Metropolitan University to study youth and community work. And when he was finished, he was appointed warden of the WIOCC. You never found people, black people, in the different establishments. I mean, I walk now and I see, you know, a lot of us in education, in nursing, you know, and all the big establishments. But that had to happen because somebody was prepared to push, you know, so that things happen. This year, Section 11, money that was given for people like us was being used by the council. And, you know, Beresford was instrumental in helping to take that to the government to say, well, look, this is not right. That money really should go to people, the people that it was entitled to go to. But of course, you know, eventually anyway, the Section 11 money was just disbanded. But, you know, and there were so many things that he did. You know, some of them too numerous to mention. I mean, there are things like the Pan-African Congress movement. Yeah, there are lots of business with the police. We had so many demonstrations. There was the Cynthia Gordon. I think they were trying to deport her, send her away, and they managed to stop that. Yeah. There was the New Cross massacre. We all went down and supported. Yeah. In fact, when we got into London and we passed through, I can't remember where it was now. When we passed through the area, the school children, when they heard that we had come from Manchester and we were on this, you know, this demonstration, jumped out of the school windows and followed us about. Thousands and thousands of people, you know. There's so many different other things that have been done, you know, that Beresford, of course, that had an impact on his family life, you know. And for my sense, I mean, I was enthused with the idea that, you know, we were being treated, you know, badly. And because I know that my children would be growing up here, because we had decided then to stay after we'd got involved in all the different things. After I realized that, I decided, well, this is where I'm at, you know, and I myself got involved in some of the various things that was done. I was a part of the WIOCC, you know, involved in trying to get young people who had problems psychologically. Yeah, we helped to set up African Caribbean mental health project. There is very much involved in those kind of struggles. You know, one of the ones that are closer to us is when Grenada, with you know, when they had the overthrow there in Grenada, Horace Bishop, and he helped a lot of causes because he felt that it was necessary for for people to realize, you know, the struggles that were going on in other parts of the world. He actually went over to parts of Africa, enlisting the aid of other people of like mind, you know, to come over and give talks about what's happening in various parts of the world. Yeah. He had a strength, Beresford, you know, that I've not seen, you know, in anybody else. He was so committed to what he was doing that he went full force and did his best. He managed to get a lot of the struggles. He managed to help quite a lot with them, and you know, in fact, Beresford, I don't know that there's another Beresford anywhere around. He did so much, you know, that I don't think that anybody else was able to reach where he reached. And I've always had a thing with him about the fact that he should pass the skills on to some of the younger people, so that when he left this earth, that Carmoor Road would not suffer after doing all of the work that they did, that there was nobody to take up that struggle. And I mean, I've lived to see Carmoor Road has not developed anymore since Berry's gone. The younger ones have just, they've left, they've dispersed, they've gone other places. And so we're more or less back into the same situation that we were in when we came over. There's not a force strong enough to struggle the way he did. And not only that, a lot of the young people see themselves as British, you know, and therefore entitled to whatever Britain has to offer. They don't see that they have an obligation to help, you know, to make things happen. Yeah? They still see themselves as being a British subject. People's aspirations now, you know, is so much on the issue of money, wealth, financial wealth, yeah, that people get qualified, and unfortunately they gravitate to London and other places. So it's a brain drain. We lose a lot of those young people who have left and gone to London. I'm not sure what they're doing in London, because, you know, I don't know what they're doing in London. No, one or two of them have gone into law, and some of them have become community workers. But had they stayed here and set up things, you know, that would further the things that we did, I'm sure we would not be in the position that we're in today. But you try telling a lot of the youngsters, they don't want to know. Even some of the older ones don't want to know, you know, what's happening. And I dread what's going to happen in the next 15, 20 years, you know, because they're not taking on any aspect of their culture. They've just thrown that away. He would have liked if they had all joined the Pan-African Congress movement. When we had, you know, when PACM came up to Manchester, if there was a conference, he would have his bookshop selling books, and you know, a lot of the youngsters used to come there. But it seemed that for them it was just a day, you know, that they could meet with people who, you know, could give them some kind of, there's a pat on the back or what, I don't know. But after that, you know, they never really did follow it through, you know, which was, that was his aspiration, for them to follow through and learn, you know, about what's happened to their foreparents, how it is that we have come here why are we not back in Africa? You know, at one time, I was able to set up some Yoruba classes so that they could learn Yoruba. Oh, that's Nigerian. Yeah. It started out well, and then, you know, there was split people, other people setting up classes as well. So, in the end, we had to. It was just disbanded. So we haven't gone very far in that respect. But it would be nice to know, you know, that we could have learned some of our foreparents some of their languages. I think as well, because our language is mostly English, it was it would have been good for us to take some form of language from some part of Africa. Didn't matter which part. But we actually chose to use Yoruba because of the big scale of people from Nigeria in the country. As I said, I've always had a fascination for Egyptology, yeah? And I encourage him. It was my 70th birthday. I said to him, we'll be going over to Egypt. And so we went over to Egypt. We spent 10 days on the River Nile. Went to visit the Valley of the Kings, the Valley of the Queens, and various other places in Egypt. We went in January 2003, and Beresford died in March of that same year. Because of all the various things that he's done, he was recognized as being somebody who needed to be recognized by members of his community as an African chief, right? And so he was, there was a ceremony, and he was given the name of Nana Bonsu. Yes. He wanted so much to live a longer life because he always felt that he would live another 50 years, you know. But like everything else, we have no control over things like that. And then I think it was Arif Ali, another Guyanese Indian from London, who recognized the things that he was doing and put him forward as one of the 100 Britons, best Britons in the UK. So that's how he got that. Nana means, how shall I say this? It's like a father, your father, yeah, your father figure. And one thing, because you know that I'm a chief as well, and one of the things that endears me so much to the kind of culture that we've lost is the respect that particularly children and adults have for their elders. Yeah, the first time I met with a friend of mine, her son was over in Nigeria, and he came over here, and he met me. And the first thing that he did was to prostrate himself on the ground. And now, anytime, anywhere I go, whenever anybody from the African community sees me, they would go down on their knees and bow. That is how Her Majesty the Queen got that thing. Oh, yes. It's a mark of respect. Yeah. And they all call me Mama. He is Nana, I am Mama. Yes. I don't think Beresford would ever have been satisfied of how much he did. He was always trying to get more, to do more and more and more, you know. But I personally feel, you know, that he's gone beyond the boundary. You know, that he has really left a mark, made a mark on so many people. You know, at his funeral, of course, you know, people could see that this was a man who commanded a lot of respect. You know, I remember seeing the police very, very active on that day, because all the cars had to be stopped. There were thousands of people came from overseas, people came from all over the world, you know, to pay respects. Had he been alive, I'm sure that there are lots more he would have done, you know, but his life has been a treasure, you know. That's not to say that there weren't, he wasn't a perfect man, far from it. I mean, sometimes you've got to make, you know, I wouldn't like to use the word enemies, but it's the one I've come talk about now. Sometimes you've got to do things, you know, that some people don't like. I mean, he was never a friend of the Manchester City Council, because he would, you know, when he went to meetings there, he was always the one that would raise questions that were very embarrassing. And this was the problem that Barry had with the City Council, because he felt that because they were paying his salary through WIOCC, that they were his managers. They sacked him and he took them to court. Of course, he lost that case, you know, but he was one in a million. In life, you don't come across very many people like him, you know, who are prepared very selflessly to do things that are necessary so that other people could live. After Barry died, there was talk about making a bust of him, you know, so that people would realize, you know, that Beresford had done various things in the community. I personally thought that because of the things that he'd done, I don't think that a bust was commensurate with, you know, the statue of the man. Yeah, I managed to get some other people around me, and they felt the same. So I approached, along with, say, Mrs. Lockham, we went to see the Vice Chancellor of Manchester University, because we needed to have somewhere to house the statue. We had contacted Manchester City Council, and they offered us, they thought it was a good idea. They offered us the park on up Moss Lane East at the top there. They said we should go and have a look and decide where we wanted to put it. So we went there, but weren't happy with the location, because you know, there were people walking through there drinking, and we thought that if we put a statue in there, you know, there was a chance that it could be wrecked at some point. So because Beresford was, he did some work with students, African students at the university. We thought that if we approached the Vice Chancellor, that we would be able to get the park by the university there, which is near to the old Charlton Town Hall, where we had put that plaque when it was the 50th celebration of the 5th Pan-African Conference. Right. And the Vice Chancellor was very accommodating. She agreed with us. She said that we should look around the park and select a spot. And she got somebody to go around the park with us, looking at where we could site the statue. And we felt that it was quite a good site, because people passing on the road would see it and recognize it for what it was. And we thought that they could use that aspect of Beresford's life to teach students, carry on teaching students, you know, that he used to teach in the university. So it was, we named it Images of African Art and Culture. And we also approached our good fellow there, Tony. We told him about it, and he was very accommodating. He's hoping that, you know, it will happen at some point. The issue is one of money, finances, you know, but it's still on the agenda for us to do that. I didn't even know that I'd been nominated, you know, and the morning that I received a letter from the palace, I thought it had been a mistake, you know, until when I saw my name and everything else. When I opened it, I was so shocked. I sat on the stairs for a long time, and Beresford came down to go to work, and he said, "Why are you sitting on the stairs?" And I said, "Have a look at this letter." And he looked at it, and I don't think he was very happy, because he was very anti-establishment now, you know. But I reread the letter after he'd read it, and I thought, I've got to give myself some time to think about this, because if he's not happy about it, then I don't know whether I should receive it. And I went to work, and I discussed it with my management committee. And they said to me, "Elouise," they said, "this award is not only for you. It's for all the people who you've been engaged with, you know, engaged in all kinds of different things. You know, they would want to know that through you, they are being recognized for the work that you all have done. We think that you should accept it." Yeah. So after a while, I came to that conclusion, and I wrote back to the palace saying that I'd accept the honor, which I did. After a while, he gave in, you know, because I said to him, "Look, we are in this country over the past how many years? We are not a people that record things that we do. We are not very good at recording our things, yeah? And if we are not careful, in the years to come, it will be as if we were here but we never did anything." Because when you receive the letter when you go to you receive the letter from the palace, it actually tells of some of the things that you've done. And I said, well, you know, our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren will know that we did do something in this country. We just didn't come and take. Yeah, and the best place for something like that to be is in the palace, because they will have means of storing this information, and it'll be there for years to come.